Welcome to the first module of my course, Programming in Python. Before we dive into Python, we will have a look around in Linux a bit, and I will give you the basic tools that you need before you can start programming. So in order to be an effective programmer, you need to have very basic Linux knowledge and be able to navigate around in Linux and know what's roughly happening under the hood. For this course, we will use Ubuntu as the operating system because it's the easiest to deal with operating system. But you can follow it in any Linux distribution if you want to. If you're running on Mac, you can just use the Mac terminal. And if you're trying to follow in Windows, you can do that as well. However, in Windows, I suggest that you install the WSL extensions. So the very first thing we need is a terminal. You will find the terminal here in the applications folder, and then you do terminal, just put it in the search field and you find the terminal. You can then drag it to the side here to get a shortcut, or just start it like this. This is Bash. Bash is the default shell in Ubuntu and the most widespread shell among Linux users. That's why we start learning our programming journey here. Before I give you a deeper dive on how things work and why the things are the way they are, I will give you a rough tour on how to navigate around, and then you will already see some basic concepts. So the first thing I want to show you is how to list the current directory with ls. That lists the current directory. You can list the content of another directory, for example, documents. So you see in documents, there's a folder called test and one folder called I'm a folder, by the way. So in Linux, it's possible to have even folder names ending in .text. So don't be surprised by this. Then if you want to change the directory, you can change to documents just by passing the documents argument into the command change directory cd. ... brings you back one directory upwards, so to speak. And what if you want to create a directory? So let's go to documents, test2, create another directory. If you want to create a file, you can do that with touch. And if you want to remove files, you can do that with rm. And if you want to remove a directory, you do it the same way, say test. This doesn't work because test is a directory. So the directory test may contain stuff. So you have to recursively remove the stuff in the directory first before you can remove the directory. So this is what this -r means. -r for recursive. So now the directory is gone. Then there's the move command. So if you want to move things around, first we create another file. File.txt. The ending has actually no meaning, so you can put anything. You can also put test here if you want to. So in order to rename something, we do that with move. So we move the file named file.test to file.txt. Now it's renamed. You want to move it into a folder, you just give the file, move, file, and then the folder name, for example, test2. And now if we look into the folder test2, it's in there. You can pass in entire paths, for example, ls documents test shows you everything that's in the documents folder and this subfolder test of the documents folder. Okay, so now let's dive a bit deeper. Bash is a program to execute other programs. So if you type ls, it's actually executing the ls program, which has some default behavior that if you don't pass any arguments, it just shows you whatever's in this directory. But you can change the behavior of this program by passing it arguments. For example, minus all, and then you see everything. You can also pass -a, that does the exact same thing. So for arguments, for some of them at least, there's a long form and a short form. And if we have a look at the manual, which you do with man, and then the program you want to have the manual for, You see all the stuff that you can pass. For beginners, probably not very helpful, but it's a list of all the arguments that you can pass to this thing. For example, you can do reverse. Just reverses the order. So let's have a look. ls minus minus reverse minus minus all. Reverse, sorry, shows you the reverse order of the arguments. So these minus minus arguments are the full arguments. You can abbreviate them, like you saw in the manual. All is abbreviated with A, and reverse is abbreviated with R. So this does the exact same thing as this here. It's just a different way of writing these. And with these minus arguments, you can even drop the second minus and just group them together as one. That's why this is very convenient. And then there's actually a third argument type. That's this raw argument, like for example, this documents folder. As you see, there are special directories. So directories starting with a dot, they are hidden. And there's dot dot and dot. Hidden directories are hidden. Dot is the current directory. So if you do ls dot, you just get the directory that we are in. If you do ls dot dot, you get the current directory's parent folder. So if you do ls dot dot, you do ls in the parent folder of the current directory. If we have a look where we are with pwd for print working directory, we are in the user's Ubuntu in his home folder, so to speak. So we are in home, Ubuntu, and if we do ls dot dot, that does ls in the home folder, so in this left folder here. So these are relative path arguments. You can also have absolute path arguments. Absolute path arguments are just relative to the root. The root is backslash. So that is where all the Linux stuff is in. That's including the entire operating system and all the files you have. So you can pass the relative argument documents or the full path, so the absolute path. Ubuntu documents. That is helpful because sometimes you don't know where you are. For example, when you script all the commands that you have here, you might not necessarily know in which folder the script is executed. That's why it's always useful to have these absolute paths. Okay, then there is the snake path, this guy here. That is a reference to the home folder, so it will always bring you back to the home of the current user. So if we go into documents, in this folder, by the way, you can have dots in the folder names. You can do this, but it's really bad style. You should never create a folder that's called .text. I'm just doing this to show you can do it. If you're in this folder and you do cd snake, this brings you back to the home directory. If you do cd documents, let's go in there again. If you do cd minus, that brings you back to the last folder where you executed cd. That might be useful when you jump to some very weird folder that's a very long string, and then you're like, oh, I have to go back, actually, I didn't want here. So cd minus brings you back.